I found the first hint about these records in a magazine from 1917. The name of the magazine was The New Assyria by Yuval Warda. And there somebody made an advert about his shop. He had a record shop. And in this advert he wrote, "We have Assyrian records." So I was very surprised to read that because I thought the oldest records were from 1929, not 1917.
Welcome everybody to episode 44 of the Assyrian Podcast. My name is Robina and I'm your newest co-host from Germany. Yes, we are known for many things, from Oktoberfest to our cars. But we also have a huge and active Assyrian community in Germany. And I'm so excited to introduce you to all the special and interesting Assyrians here. You'll be surprised at how much we have going on. In this episode, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Abboud Zeitoune, who, like many other Assyrians, lives in the city of Wiesbaden, which is near the maybe better known city of Frankfurt. He has a wealth of knowledge about modern Assyrian music, which he has catalogued and documented in the form of books for every one of us to read. I'm so excited for you to meet Malforno, or Malpana, Abboud, and hear about all the work he does to preserve not only our music and musical history, but different aspects of Assyrian history, including the biography he's working on about the Father of Assyrian Nationalism, Naum Faik. Little fun fact, just by listening to Eastern Assyrian songs, he was able to learn and speak the dialect fluently. And he has a database of over 25,000 Assyrian songs. How cool is that? If this is the first episode you're listening to, Rabab Shena und herzlich willkommen. We deliver new episodes to you every Tuesday. So in order to not miss anything, be sure to click on the subscribe button and join our email list at info@assyrianpodcast.com. And don't forget to review us and tell all your friends and family. Lastly, a shout out to Tony Kalogorakis and the Injury Lawyers of Illinois for sponsoring this episode. If you know anyone who has been in a serious accident, please reach out to Tony Kalogorakis. He has been recognized as a top 40 lawyer and a rising star by Super Lawyers publication and has obtained multiple multi-million-dollar awards. Tony can be reached at injuryrights.com or 847-982-9516. And now, without further ado, here is Abboud Zeitoune.
I start with a story, as you asked for, the story of my family. My father was born in Arbo. This is a village in Tur Abdin. And he and his brother he was around 2 years old and his brother maybe some months when my grandfather died. And my grandmother left them and married another guy. So they were, as you can say, orphans. Mm-hmm. And they grew up in the family there, larger, as you know, our people in the villages, in the larger family. And with the age of, I think 14, 15 years, my father and his brother came to Syria. The family was poor. And they tried to start a new life in Qamishli. And the circumstances was this, that they came too late regarding to be registered as Syrian citizens. So they lived there as illegal citizens.
Well, what year was that?
They came, I think, 1965.
Yeah, okay.
And the registration was in 1962. Mm-hmm. So they were 3 years too late there. And my father met my mother. They married, I think it was 1967. And I was born in Qamishli. I think it was 1971 because I don't know the exact birthday of mine. After that, my father and mother decided to leave for Lebanon because of working opportunities, and they thought at that time that Lebanon is a Christian state, and so Christians are welcome and so on. Of course, at the end, it was not this vision they met in Lebanon. Our people not that welcome, I would say, from the majority of the Maronites. Yeah,
Okay.
they were. It was not a good mood, I would say.
Who are the Maronites?
Maronites are the majority of the Lebanese Christians. It's an own church, a Maronite Syriac church, and they were the original inhabitants of the country, of course. And of course, we count them as Assyrians at the end because they originally spoke our language. Meanwhile, they speak I think 99% Arabic. I can't remember or recall anything from the Syrian time. I grew up in Lebanon. I visited the school of the Syriac Orthodox Church, as the name was Naum Faik. I'm very proud I get the chance to visit that school because it's very prominent school in our modern history. And one of the people who worked in the early establishment of this association, Naum Faik, was Naum Faik, and I will talk about Naum Faik later.
Yes.
That's why I'm very proud to say I am one of the students of Naum Faik.
That's so cool to say.
Yes. Yeah. And then till 1984, we emigrated to Germany then. And since that time, I live here in Germany, the city of Wiesbaden now.
The big Assyrian community.
Yes, in Wiesbaden, we have a large community here, they from all Near Eastern countries. The first people were from Tur Abdin, from Turkey. Then people from Syria came from Iraq, from Lebanon, from Iran. We have all of them here. And it's a nice mix.
Yeah, and you came to Wiesbaden, and how did your life look like here? What did you do?
I had the luck that I came with the age of 13, 14 years, that I had the opportunity to stay in school first of all. And this is also a funny situation. If you can imagine, you travel to China and you will be in a school, in a class where you have to start to study and you don't speak the language.
Yes, so hard.
I had this situation. My luck is that I had already some English courses or lessons in the school in Beirut. So at the end, the Latin scripts were not strange for me or new. So this was the basis for me to start for the German language. And I had the luck that I came into the 8th class, and I spent 2 years freely from myself, that I said I will stay in my class just to learn the language and to get the connection to this to the study. So at the end I could manage that I get my degree, that at the end I could study on the university here. I studied business administration here, and now I am working as compliance manager. Compliance manager is many people, especially here in Europe, it's a new wording which also the Germans took. I'm more the anti-corruption responsible in my company, yes. So my task is to teach people how to deal with business partners, for example, or public officials, how to avoid, of course, corruption and so on. In Wiesbaden, we have an association, a cultural association, which was established in 1980. I became, of course, later several times the head of this, or the chairman of this associations. I think 1, 2, 3 periods I was the chairman of the association later. But in the beginning, we used to live in a village around 30 kilometers from Wiesbaden, so we didn't have the opportunity to be always in the city. So firstly, I came in connection with the Assyrian movement in 1991, where I get a member of the ADO, Assyrian Democratic Organization, Takasta. Yes. And there I started my national work or in the national movement. And in 1999 I became the first time the chairman of the association here. Until that time I wasn't even a member in the association.
Oh.
Yes.
So you went straight to chairman.
Yes. I was only a member at the ADO, And later, of course, in this period, I was in all activities of the organization, but also the activities of the association here in Wiesbaden. So from this starting point, I came in contact with our culture, our music, and there started my interest in our culture and music, of course.
And the music, yes. Your interest in music, did it come straight with the culture, or was there a point in your life where you realized that you really love it?
Maybe if I say the following sentence, the listeners will be surprised. In the late 80s, I used to hear Western music. I still sometimes hear, for example, if I have some trainings, I have 2 or 3 times in the week I make sports. I'm running.
Yeah.
And I used to hear, for example, AC/DC or something like hard rock or with faster rhythms. And yes.
It's so different to Assyrian music.
Yes. And I started with that kind of music. It was in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s. And somewhere at the beginning of the 90s, it switched that I started to like Assyrian music, to collect cassettes, tapes, and later CDs. And there it started. And of course, we have the luck here in Wiesbaden that we have all fractions of our people here, that I get the access to all the fractions and to get the music of all sides. For example, Assyrians from Iran have their own style and their own musicians and singers. And so they have, I think still have their associations here. It's Abgad.
Yes.
And from that time they they hired also some singers from the US, like Robert Batsaya, George Arvachchi, names which I never heard before, of course. And this was my first connection with that group. The other side is, of course, the Assyrians from Iraq. They had also one association, very short time, and they had also their musicians and their works, their cassettes, and so on. So I get the chance to get this material. This was the time before internet, before the world became a village. So as time gone by, and I had a big collection of cassettes. And beside that, I am very interested in IT, in computers and so on. And one day, one colleague from my business, from my work, showed me his own database for his hobby. His hobby was to collect movies, VHS. He had in his database, it was an access-based database. For each tape or video, an own place for the cover, an own place for the actors, and so on. And I asked him, could you maybe change this database for music tapes? And he said, why? I can try that, yes. And he did that, really. And till today, I still use that database, by the way.
Oh.
Yes, and there it started, the idea was born to make a catalog or a documentation, first of all, of my private collection, and then sometimes 2 or 3 years later, the decision came that I have to publish this work because it's missed in our culture. And if I make a perspective today to the last 15 years, so many cassettes, many works are lost now. So at the end, I'm very happy that I did these 2 works, that at the end we have a documentation, catalog. Preserved, yes, for the next generations. First of all, I started then, beside my own collection, to get in contact with other people who have the same disease like me. Yes, and I found some good friends who helped me then. That we could collect a lot of cassettes, and at the end I borrowed many works from them. I digitized them. This was the project beside the book, that everything I received at the beginning, that I made a digital copy of it from the cassettes, from the records, and so on. And of course scanning the covers and type the information in the database. All this was done, and then somewhere in 2007, the book was published.
The music Pearls of
The
Bethnahrin.
first book, yes, Pearls of Bethnahrin, music Pearls of Bethnahrin, an Assyrian Syriac discography. This was my first book, and I was sure at that time, that there will be some works missed in that book due to the less connections at that time, because the first book was a door opener for me to get to the larger community all over the world, in Australia, in US, and in our home countries. And that's why the second book was necessary. So the first one was a first try to show the people, look, we can preserve our heritage in this way. And after that, as I said, learned to know many good friends who were then part of the second book. The structure of the book is that I scanned every cover of a cassette, CD or vinyl record. I put it in an alphabetical order, and then I wrote all song names, wrote the lyricists who wrote the text of the songs, and who composed each song. And this I do for the first book. I can't remember how many cassettes I put there. I think there were maybe 1,500, I'm not sure.
Wow, 1,500 cassettes?
Yes. Meanwhile, I have in my digital library around 25,000 tracks. Yes.
Yeah. That's a lot. And it's all Assyrian, Western Assyrian,
Yes,
Eastern
yes, yes.
Assyrian. Oh, okay.
The main category for me is that a singer enter my books was language. Of course, we have many singers who sung in other languages, but I didn't took their records. I have them, of course. I have them, but I didn't put them in my books because there is no benefit to sing in Arabic or in Turkish or what else for our heritage. So I took only works in our language. I didn't make any difference between is it a stolen melody or not stolen, is it Turkish, is it Arabic.
Okay, yes.
At the end, the criteria was which language do you sing? Is it Assyrian? Then it's okay, you came in. Is it not? Then you are out.
Okay. And how long did it take you to write one book?
The first one, I made a decision in 2003. It took 4 years for the first book, and from that time I thought it was my thinking as I published that in 2007 that this is the base, that's all. But I recognized short time later that there is a need for a second book. So from 2007 till 2015 I worked on the second one. The second one is modern Assyrian music. This book comes along with a CD, because after publishing the first book, many people asked me, why don't you put a CD that we at least hear some samples. So I did that for the second book, and I chose around 60 different songs from 1917 till 2010. So that's the range of the samples which I choose. Wow. And beside the catalog, I have written the modern history of our music. That means the development of our music of the last 110 years. So I wrote many biographies of singers, songwriters, composers. So I think I have in the second book around 10 biographies, and in the first one also around, I think also 10 biographies.
Wow.
Of persons I thought they deserved that I write their biographies. And as for language, this is also the questions I get or critics sometimes. I used to write both books in two languages, in German and English. Many people ask me, why don't you write that in Arabic? I answer always to these people that I said, I wrote these books for your children, and unfortunately a large part of our people lives outside our homeland, and most of them or their children will be for sure not to learn Arabic or speak or read Arabic.
That's true, yeah.
So at the end, English is a language where I can say the next 100 years we don't have a problem with that.
What was especially surprising during your research?
Surprising, many surprised, starting from the artists, first of all. I was astonished that I met a lot of singers, by the way. I met them, I interviewed them, and I was very surprised that I asked them about their works, and they told me I can't remember what I sang before 20 years. And so I gave them the name of the songs, but they can't recall the name of the songwriter or the composer, for example. The other experience I had, we are still looking for an album cover of Sergon Gabriel, for example. This is an album cover of his album Nineveh from 1978. Even Sergon don't have a copy of it.
No.
Yes.
Maybe someone of the listeners.
That's why I'm telling that.
Please help us out.
Yes, if you have the cover of the record of Nineveh from 1978 of Sergon Gabriel, please send me at least the scan of that record. Of course, if you have it in original, I will buy it and I will give you a copy of my book as a gift. Yes, but I was very surprised. It was because even singers who live in the West, we had these problems. I visited, for example, Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Syria, there wasn't this official cover and cassettes. They used to record their music on reel tapes. Reel tapes are this larger, what I said, it's reel tapes. The listeners can Google that. It's reel tape is the name. I can't describe it. It's a larger cassette, you can say, with two reels. So on each of these reel tapes, you can record around 4 or 5 hours. And they used to record on these reel tapes. And of course, they did had also that professional studios in Syria. They used to record that in their homes. And I felt a little bit like an archaeologist because I received dozens of reel tapes. There was nothing written on them. And it's always surprising to get them, first of all, and then we used to give them to a professional company, these reel tapes. They put them in an oven, they warm them some hours, and then they play them and digitalize them. Okay. So, and then the moment comes where the surprise, what is in this reel tape? So, and we were surprised that we hear, of course, there were also some foreign singers. Samira Tawfiq, for example, it's a known Assyrian singer, sings Arabic there, no problem, okay. Some Kurdish songs we hear there. But mostly, because we received them from Assyrians, mostly are from our singers from the 70s, 60s, 50s. And also we discovered many songs we never heard before. They were lost, you can say. We could recover them from death, you can say. Yes. And now we have them, of course. And beside that, I made a lot of interviews of the people, especially older people. I like to interview them because they have a lot of knowledge. And I did that with many people. But I sit beside them, record them for 5 hours, and ask them about their daily life before 40, 50 years, 60 years. And I had the luck that some of them had very good memory.
And how did it change? How did Assyrian music change throughout the time? And what is the difference from like years ago and today?
Talking about Assyrian music, you have to make, first of all, a split between East and Western Assyrian music. Western Assyrian music, you have to know that till 1968, we didn't use, as West Assyrians, we didn't use to sing folk songs. It was like a sin or forbidden. What else? I wrote about this issue. It's an own chapter in my book. Starting from 1968, there we have Sham Omar with the voice of Habib Musa, and then it started from Qamishli, and then we had then a lot of productions. The West Assyrians, you can say till today mostly, used to take oriental instruments, oud, derbaki and so on. Meanwhile, of course, they use only keyboards. But the difference to the East Assyrians is, first of all, even for the East Assyrians, you have make difference between Iran and Iraq. So in my lectures, I give one sample of William Daniel. William Daniel is one of the maestros of our music. There's no doubt about that. If you hear his music or how people sing his music, you will feel that this is very European and classical music. It's only from the hearing here. Mm-hmm. Of course, the roots are Assyrians, no doubt, but the kind of the people, how the people were educated. William Daniel follows Khofri, Nebo Isabai, and so on. All of these maestros get their music education in Europe or in the US. So they came back to Iran with a classical European education. So on this base, of course, the classical education is the highest education about music we talk about, of course. And this was the base for their productions. So all of them have books with notation and so on. It's very rare today to see musician in our people or Assyrian people that they publish books with notation. But these maestros in Iran, they did that. And they wrote songs which are, for our ears, for my personally, my ear, is very classical, European classical, but very lovely melodies. I have one sample, I give that in my lectures also. I took one song, the song is Marganita.
Oh, yes.
One time it is sung by Lorraine Davis, and Lorraine Davis is soprano, you can say. She sings like an opera. And I give the same song. It was a gathering, it was not an official concert, nothing. There were some people who were sitting in Tehran, and I think the name of the singer there is Albert Khoshabe. And he sings the same song, and on the second version you can dance Shekhani on it. The first song is opera, where the singer is crying, more, yes. And there I display for the people that I will say, look, it sounds like classical European, but its heritage is our music. And this is what our maestros in Iran done. This is the one side from Iran. Iraq is again another story. It's another story because Iran, most bands were influenced by Western music instruments, I will say, from the British Army was there. Habbaniya was a military station near Baghdad, and there the first bands were built or created, and they used to take drums, guitars, and so on. You can less hear oud or derbake in the productions of Assyrians from Iraq in that period. It's only the breakthrough, I will say, in Iraq was the starting of the recording at Jamil Bashir's recording studio in Baghdad. The first one was Oshana Yuwal Mirza in 1959. And then after Oshana Yuwal Mirza, many other singers came and took Oshana as their idol to produce their own songs. So we have after Oshana, Adwar Yusuf Biba, Albert Ruel Tamras, even Sargon Gabriel sang in the background chorus in one of the recordings of Albert Ruel. So this was the breaking point where many singers started their career from Iraq.
Interesting. What does Assyrian music say to the world that is different than what everyone else is saying?
Well, today we don't say anything to the world. Unfortunately, I gave a lecture in Frankfurt at the university and also in Harvard University, and I started my lectures with our ancient music, especially our church music. And I try to display in these lectures that all the Oriental music we have today has its roots in our ancient music, of course. But I take one video piece. I took it from Nur Iskandar. Nur Iskandar is a known composer from our people, from Syria. And he did a kind of a concert in 2008 in Damascus. And he took two choruses two groups of singers. The one group started to recite prayers from the mosque. The starting was from the church, first of all.
Yeah.
They started Shibholok Morio, Abun Bashmai, and so on. And then it's the group from the mosque start to sing. I didn't comment this piece of video because if you hear it, you will not find any difference between how the Muslims pray and how we pray. So the message is, we are older than you, at least 600 years. So it should be so that you took our music for your prayers and later for your music, of course. And the bass, I'm not a musicologist, but I have friends who gave lectures about this issue. All the scales and so on of our church music are the same which Arabs and Turks have today. So they took that from our church, from our heritage. Mm-hmm. So this is the first thing we gave to the world. Yes? Your question was about what do we give today?
Yeah.
And today I am very sad. I'm very, very sad about our situation. First of all, I start with my part of the Western Assyrian singers. I'm very angry about them. Yes, I say that in front of them, in their face also, that I can't understand it, that a young singer who don't speak Arabic start to learn Arabic and to sing in Arabic and to produce CDs in Arabic. I can understand that. And we have many, many examples like this. I say that directly to them also, that I don't respect such behavior, because as the modern West Assyrian folk songs were introduced, the aim of the guys, one of the guys was Ninos Aho, for example, the late Ninos Aho, or Dr. Abraham Lahdo, Osio Abraham Lahdo. The aim of these guys, this was a decision of the ADO, Assyrian Democratic Organization, that we have to shift or to throw out all Kurdish, Turkish, Armenian singing from our weddings. And they succeeded also in that. But nowadays, what I see at our singers, especially as I said here in Europe also, that they bringing even Kurdish music back to our weddings. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any understanding for that. And the other point is that even very successful singers don't produce anything new. So I have many in my mind now, I'm talking about them. They get maybe 40, 50, 60,000 euros a year, but they are not able to produce 5 songs a year. And their argument is always that we don't have money. That's not true, because if you receive 60,000, you can invest 5,000-6,000 in your audience. Yes, this is the bitter reality of the West Assyrian music. So I had, before 2-3 months, there were a youth camp here in Germany. It was only about music, and it was only about the current music. And I tried to collect the last productions of the last 2.5 years. And for West Assyrians, I could identify 34 songs. Yes, we have in Europe, just for the listeners, we have in Europe, I think maybe around 100 singers. So if each singer produce 1 song a year, I'm happy with that. Yeah. I will be happy with that, yes. But no, 100 singers, but in 3 years, 30 songs, or it's a disaster for us.
And do you think that is still going to be the situation in, let's say, 30 years, or is it going to change?
Well, we are in a crucial time now, because our language, in whole Europe, we don't have one kindergarten. I'm not saying school, not one kindergarten where our language is taught. So the language is very essential, and if we don't speak and teach our language, so don't expect that the coming generation will produce songs in our language. So this is very, very crucial. That's why the responsibility of the today's singers who are fluent in our language is very big, because they have to produce songs. Yes, We have songwriter. We have people who can put words together. Maybe we don't have good composers. That's maybe also the sad reality. But even if you have money, we can acquire that people can get also good melodies. Yes, and at the end, if we come back to the church, we can get a lot of melodies from the church. I know I mentioned Dr. Ibrahim Lahdo. Osio Broham tries to give this message. He made a lot of concerts and a lot of CDs where he put music from church hymns, and converted them to folk songs. So I think I'm sure that there are a lot of pearls in our church music where our musicians can reproduce and make something new out of them.
There's been efforts made by Munir Sheri, like they put Assyrian music on YouTube and websites for the following generations, as your books, for the following generations to be able to look that up. How can there be more access to music besides from that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I greet my friend Munir via this channel. Well, Munir, we are on a daily contact.
Okay.
Yes. Munir is a good friend. He supported me mostly in my second book. This was one of the persons who I knew about him after my first book. So in the first book you will miss his name, but in the second book he was one of the main actors of the book, I would say, because he is still a collector and very, as I said, very deep behind the issues. And I'm very thankful that I get in contact with him. And beside him there is Romeo Hanna. Romeo Hanna is, I think, over 70 years now old. But he helped a lot because in the 60s he was a musician. He used to play guitar in one of our Assyrian groups in Iraq. I think he worked also in a record shop in Baghdad. So he had a very good, not only memory, but also he made a documentation of these issues. And he originally wanted to also publish a book, but after he saw my first book, he decided to help me. These two people beside my friend Hannibal Romanus. Hannibal Romanus is from Sweden. These people are the core of this collector network. I have also Yilmaz Beth Zaroke, I don't know, before I forget somebody. And these are the core net of the collectors. And we have all of this group the same copy of the music, because it is a high responsibility to have 25,000 songs in one place. So it's very dangerous if laptop crashed or so on. Of course, I have my own backup.
Yes.
But beside that, at least in two places on the world, we have same copy. So
good thing.
they are secured. Yes. But back to your question, in a website where we can publish all these songs is first of all a question of time, because you have to invest a lot of time to update the website, to maintain it, and it's a question of costs of money. So these 2 points are important, because if you don't have that, at the end, with my books we have documentation that nothing is lost. Maybe, as I told you the story about the real tapes, the same what for our search was that we searched for old books and newspapers where is something about our music is written about. I will tell you maybe this story about the oldest records we know now. That's also a question of luck that we found them. I found the first hint about these records in a magazine from 1917. The name of the magazine was The New Assyria. The New Assyria was published by Jewel Warda. He was a Assyrian priest. And there somebody was made an advert about his shop. He had a record shop. And in this advert he wrote, "We have Assyrian records." So I was very surprised to read that because I thought the oldest records were from 1929 and not 1917. So there I started to ask his children and grandchildren, because he died for sure in 1917, and we didn't find these records. So by chance, one day, somebody on eBay sold 3 records, and on the records there is written Assyrian records.
Wow.
And the guy who had the shop wrote, "We have Assyrian records." So, and these records we found by chance on eBay. My friend Munir Cherry has the original. We have 3 records. There are at least 4 records because we have number 2, 3, and 4. Number 1, we don't know, we don't have it. Still don't have it. So this is a chance we get them. And we have, of course, now also digital copy of them. And this is how we worked also. We had I reviewed a lot of magazines, especially magazines, to find any information about singers, composers, and so on. The third book is not only my work. It is a work of some guys, some young people. It's a cooperation with 4 or 5 young people from the Assyrian Youth Federation in Germany, AYUTM. And they came with the idea, we want to write a song book. That means we want to write down the lyrics of songs, and we want that you help us in this case. I said, of course, I'm ready to help. And we did this work. The book is since 2 years in the market. The name of the book is Music Heritage of Mesopotamia, Yortutho or Yertuta al-Musiqi Beth-Nahrin. And we decided, or we collected, or we wrote the lyrics of 145 songs.
Wow.
In Latin letters, but of course in our language at the end, in Latin letters. And we put all songs on DVD in this book. So we have on the DVD 145 songs. And this is a songbook where everybody can sing with a song.
Also, just sit around the bonfire and sing along.
Yes. And it's a mix of West Eastern Assyrian songs, and we have also even some church hymns in the book. Yes. This was in 2016 with some friends of AYUTM.
You must be proud of them, right? Young people engaged in the music.
Yes, I'm very happy that these guys came with this idea, and I'm very happy. I'm also say hello via this interview to them.
Shout out to AJM.
Let me see, before I forget some of them, I will mention all of them. First of all, of course, Malko Baidono, David Merane, Daniel Shushe, Malko Baidono, Augin Aho. So I didn't forget nobody. So Shlomo El-Kulech.
So it's apparent that you've given a lot of your life into this work in the Assyrian community. Do you ever look back and wish you would have focused your efforts in a totally different direction?
No, I think what I have done is it was lack in our documentation, in our history. So I think I am happy to enter this field because of course I have mentioned some names of people who collected, but I don't know if they ever came to the idea to print a book, to publish a book of this collection. So this step, I closed this chapter. I think as for the music of the 100 years, this is enough, I think, for documentation. Yes. Also digitalization, we are so far okay with that. So no, I'm happy with that. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we all listen to music that inspires us. Who do you listen to? Who's your favorite singer?
It's depend on the mood you are in. I don't have one favorite singer. It's depend on the mood. Of course, if I'm in a mood to relax, is Ashur Betserkis number 1. No way. And of course, I say always, there is no wedding among our people, West or East Assyrians, where you don't hear songs of Sargon Gabriel.
No, yeah,
So,
that's right.
I think if this singer didn't produce these records, I don't know which songs the people will sing. Way Way Minnach is standard in all weddings I attend and so on. Also Persona and Brat Mama Oshana and so on. Yes, and
That's true.
so if I like to dance, then of course to the songs of Sergon Gabriel or Iwan Agassi, of course, great. And for the western part, the voice of Habib Musa is great. This mountainous voice is. It's only to mention some of them.
Okay.
Of course, I like many singers who are also my friends. So, but it's, as I said, it depends on the mood you are in.
You're currently working on a new book.
Yes.
It's about Naum Faik, right?
Yes. So the listeners can't see that now. What I am holding in my hand is a book who originally was or was in the possession of Naum Faik in person.
Wow, okay.
It's his original book.
It looks like it's a really old notebook.
Yes,
It's
yes.
so nice.
This is you can read the poverty of, and then he wrote in his hand, Naum Palach.
Yeah.
This is his name, and this was his address also here, 21st Street in West New York,
West New York.
Jersey.
Wow, yeah.
So this is one of his books. I'm very lucky to receive the material which is left now. I think we lost a lot of them. But at the end, what is left, I could get it from my last visit in this October. This material are some books and many handwritings of him, or manuscripts. So I decided to write about Naum Faik because I entered the ADO in 1991. And since that time, I can recall, till today, we have the memorial of Naum Faik every year on the 5th of February. And till now, we didn't have any original writing of Naum Faik. So we talk about him, he was a great poet, great nationalist, but nothing of his writings.
Just short, for our listeners who do not know who Naum Faik is, tell us.
Yes.
Before we
Yes,
understand.
yes. Naum Faik, you can count him as the father of Assyrian nationalism, beside Ashur Yusuf. Ashur Yusuf was a professor in Kharput in Turkey. He was murdered at the genocide in 1915. And Naum Faik was his companion, you can say. He was from Diyarbakir, from Amit, and he emigrated to the US in 1912. And still in the homeland, he produced a magazine, Kawkab Madenha, and today we have, I think, 45 or 46 issues of this magazine. And in that time, he also founded a society, Iruta, Awakening Society, to awake the people, to say, awake, we are a nation, we have to stand up for our rights, and so on. And after he migrated to the US, he continued to publish a magazine. It was Beth-Nahrin. And in two years, from 1921-22, he was also the chief editor of Khouyada, was the official magazine of the Assyrian National Associations at that time. And he died in 1930 in New Jersey. And all his life he wrote. So, and the only link we have to Naum Faik today, in all the commemorations and memorials we have, is a book which was published in 1936 in Damascus. It was a kind of memorial about him. Some friends of him decided to write something about him, to collect about him. The name of the book is Dhikra wa Takhlid. There, many people of that time wrote some statements about him, and they put some short original writings of him. That's all what we have today. So today, as I said, the world is becoming a village. I have now around 190 issues of Beth-Nahrin, 45 issues of Kaukab Mancha, and 39 issues of Khoyada. Beside the books you can see here, what I have here, of course he wrote also several books. We have some of them. Meanwhile, I think around 10 books I could locate, and we have them digitally now. So this is the base where I start my work for Naum Faik. So the obstacles we have with this issue is, coming back to the language, why it's very crucial. Naum Faik used to write in Gershuni Ottoman Turkish. That means he used to write in our letters, but the language behind this writing was Ottoman Turkish.
Oh, okay.
So the problem now is I can't speak or read Turkish. Even if I could speak Turkish, today's Turkish is different from the old Turkish. So we need somebody specialist who can decipher this writing. So I have the luck that I have a relative here who is Malfono, who is a teacher in our language, who also is good in Arabic, in Kurdish, in Turkish.
Wow.
So at the end, I think 95% he can understand the Ottoman Turkish. So I bought him a recorder, voice recorder, gave him the digital copies, and I said, so you start now to read and to translate to Surat, that I understand what he wrote. And then I start now to translate to English and German.
You're going to write the book in both languages as well?
Yes, I will. My aim is to publish 2 different books, one in English, one in German, not one book in 2 languages.
Okay, yeah.
2 different languages, but as I said, it's the language first of all, because he wrote also in Gershuni Arabic, he wrote in Assyrian, also in our language also, and then in Khoyada, there are parts in English, parts in Arabic, and we have some magazines of his time. This is very interesting. Magazines of his time, the people from Kharput who came to the US, they used to speak Armenian and used to write in Armenian letters, but Turkish, Ottoman Turkish. So this is a challenge which I didn't resolve yet. I don't have somebody who can translate these writings.
Oh, okay.
There was a magazine named Babylon. There was and Nineveh is another magazine where they use these letters, Armenian letters, but Ottoman Turkish behind this. So it's not from Naum Faik himself, but at the end I found his picture in one of the books where Armenian is written. So I have to translate that part at least.
Okay. Oh.
Yes.
Is it so hard to find someone? Like for an Armenian person that maybe speaks Ottoman Turkish?
It's hard, yes. I don't know somebody. I know via connections that it's possible to translate that, but it's a question of money then. Because I don't know them personally, but they are somewhere in Turkey and they demand money for that.
Oh, okay.
But the main part is that in the main writing of Naum Faik, we can do it by ourselves. And there I enter that. The whole recording, because the person who I talked about, he record each issue, and I will save this in my library also, the recording. So we did that also as archive at the end for people who don't read this language. And at the end, we are happy to have, first of all, the material, because they were lost. And the main thank for this issue is going to Mara. Mara is the Modern Assyrian Research Archive. It's a foundation which was founded before, I think, 10 years or more than 10 years. And through the visits of the friends, especially my friend Thomas Ishik, we could collect a lot of these original writings. We have at least the scanning of them in digital format. So they are available, and now we can get into them and write about them. And this will be the first, I will say, authentic biography of Naum Faik.
Wow. It's really interesting. It's so nice. Like, where did you get these old notebooks?
So these notebooks, what you see here is, I was this autumn, before 4 or 5 weeks, I was in Harvard. And
Harvard University?
Yes, and from there I went to New Jersey. I asked for this material in New Jersey. The family of Naum Faik gave this material at that time, I think before 40, 50, 60 years, I don't know, to the church there. And at the end I could get them. I was very happy because they show me them as said, this is everything, I have a lot more here, it's not only these two. He said, this is the material. I thought I can make some pictures of them then. And he said, no, you can't take them.
Wow.
I looked back, I said, do you really mean I can take them? So my complete luggage back from the US was blocked by books of Naum Faik. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have listeners from all over the world. If you had one thing to say to them all, what would that be?
I am very happy that we have the opportunity today to connect via this medium, I will say, internet. I'm very happy about this opportunity and I use it extensively in my works. I'm still use it also. We can use it for the welfare of our nation. What I will say, get in contact to our people worldwide. As I said, for my case, I see that from our Youth Federation. They have contacts all over the world, from Arizona, Canada to the homeland. This is great, and the opener of this is the way where you can hear me now, is the internet, of course. And we as people, we are very open to each other. It's my experience. I contacted many people for my works, and I say, I am Assyrian, I want information from you, and you see the people are very open to you. And just use this opportunity to connect with each other. And this helps you not only in the field of national work, it's helped you also maybe in your private work, in your private network. It's a great opportunity. We have to use that. And beside that, I hope that we can find ways to preserve our language. I wished I could, of course, I can do this interview in my language, but however, we do it now in English. But I wish, my greatest wish is that we can rescue our language. Even I hear that from my western part that the easterns, we can't understand them. I speak both dialects. I learned the eastern dialect only by hearing music, by the way. Yes,
Wow.
I don't have somebody here where I can exchange with them, but only from hearing songs, music, and sometimes it makes click, and then I started to speak. And meanwhile, I gave some lectures in the Eastern dialect, and I get, by the way, from the San Jose community, my certificate of Urmijnai. These ways, the way of internet is a great way we can do it to save our language, but we have to start it. I see some steps. We have virtual schools, for example, so on, that we should preserve our language